Beyond New START and INF, what needs to be addressed next as we're looking to the future?
Well, I think the one area, I mean, generally when you go into an arms control negotiation, it's kind of like buying a used car. I mean, you have to have some comparative advantage, or you're going to get you know, something that doesn't work well at a high price. So you want to look for the car that the seller really wants to sell, you know, and for reasons that you know. I think the way you do that roughly is have a comparative advantage that the other side is afraid you're going to deploy, or that you might offer to take down a little if they will do something else. Without that advantage, you're not going to get, as they would say, a good deal. So if you look at all these things we talked about, perhaps space is the one area where for a while, I don't know how much longer, we do have a comparative advantage. We have more things up there. We know how to launch things in clever ways. We're moving towards systems that are plentiful, replenishable, stealthy, maneuverable, and you know, I think China and Russia want to compete, and they're trying to close the gap, but right now the gap's pretty big. So it seems to me you ought to take advantage of that and negotiate rules that would keep satellites that can refuel, repair, and reposition for peaceful purposes from being used to take fuel out, damage, and put in the wrong position our key satellites, which are in semi-geo and geo. These things are big. Everybody knows where they are. And they're like GPS, military communication satellites, satellite sensors for missiles, and all of these things are really big. We're going to be depending on those satellites for at least another decade. We need to have some rules to keep people from coming by too frequently, too long, with too many satellites. And if we had those rules, we should live by them ourselves, right? So that might be something you really want to hash out now. Okay, so that's the first thing, and that's not START, that's not INF. I talked before about maybe solemn pledges, not to strike cities. Now you could say, well, but in a war, everyone will do whatever they want. Yeah, but after every war, if someone has violated their solemn pledges, they can be hauled up. People think about that a little. We have like war criminal trials and things of that sort. I think it would be useful to say, with regard to the cities, just say no. Now, why would the Chinese and Russians agree to that? Well, they're more urbanized than we are, actually. Why would we want it? Well, I think we want that pause. Also, I think, without sounding morally superior, you know, I think we care about the moral issue at least as much as the Chinese or Russians, probably more, I hope. It's worth talking about. Finally, for the reason I mentioned before, you're going to need a pause when you run out of targets with these new missiles. This might help. And also, it'll give you something to talk about while you're trying to get a comparative advantage, which you don't have, in intermediate range missiles. So I think the fissile material question, the production of more enriched uranium beyond anything any civil sector needs, reprocessing of any sort, which is uneconomical and unnecessary for promoting nuclear power. We should start talking about that now. Everyone should realize the foolishness of turning a blind eye to not capping or putting a moratorium on some of these activities. In the case of enrichment, I think you have to have an agreement. We shouldn't build more capacity anywhere until there's more demand. We have a surplus of capacity globally, and it's silly. It's going to facilitate, you know, more Pakistans, more Indias, more North Koreas, and we've got enough strategic headaches without fueling additional actors to drive us crazy.